Welcome to Voluble Minds, reflections on and abbreviated readings of famous philosophical dialogues. I'm Colin Wulff, Assistant Director of Religious Education at the Fourth Universalist Society in New York City. If you would like to skip the introductory segment on today's philosopher and dialogue and go straight to the reading, the timestamp posted in the video description will help you to do that. Thank you for joining us. Crito, written about 360 BCE, is the last of the dialogues we will be exploring in our Plato unit, and it also concludes the narrative arc we have been following with Socrates. Here, having been condemned by Meletus and a sufficient portion of the Athenian jury, Socrates awaits his death, while his friend Crito attempts to persuade him to escape. Socrates resists the suggestion and puts the burden on Crito to demonstrate why escape is a good idea. If you wish to continue this story thread outside our series, you might look into the dialogue Phaedo, which reflects on the actual death of Socrates, but is less conducive to our format. We hope you will check out both that and the complete Crito and any other dialogues we haven't included in the Plato unit of this series. Would you have the resolve to stay with your unjust captors out of a respect for the state as an organism extending beyond the individuals responsible for your imprisonment? Or does resolve have nothing to do with it? Is Socrates rather being indulgent, or letting the fact that he is already near the end of his life blind him to the possibility that the injustices which were visited upon him could be visited upon others at the mercy of a broken system? Plato, via Socrates' argument for accepting his fate, whether noble or not, anticipates other social contract philosophers, such as Thomas Hobbes, in his belief that each citizen's indebtedness to the state should make them beholden to accept any misfortune which the state visits upon them. Some may find such status paternalism in this dialogue difficult to stomach, but there is more to it. Socrates also cautions against being swayed by popular opinion. He entreats Crito to rather maintain integrity than fear that it will be misapprehended by others to the detriment of his reputation. Socrates considers the ways in which he might have avoided his fate had his mission to be a teacher and live honestly not been more important to him. He decides he could not have done otherwise. And ultimately, he tries to contemplate the long-term damage that might be caused to his loving accomplices were he to escape, only to live out the few years remaining to him away from home. We'll leave Plato through Socrates to take us through it. I will be joined today by Daniel Ervin, another dear childhood friend who will bring us home with this valediction to Socrates. Daniel is a lifelong resident of Tallahassee, Florida, and has served as physical education and cross-country coach at the Magnolia School, a clerk at the Florida Office of the Attorney General Records Department, and catering manager at the Tallahassee Ford River Smokehouse. He's currently an assistant at Ervin Kitchen and Ervin Attorneys at Law. He's also a highly creative individual, currently involved in both writing and game development projects in his spare time. Among our rotation of guest readers, Daniel is the one with whom I have had perhaps the most tempestuous and long-standing dialogues in real life, over topics from the trivial to the momentous, as we pass through various stages of maturity and identity, arriving very much through a crucible of challenging discourse at our present stage of secure and mutually appreciative friendship. In honor of what I've learned from my dialogues with him over the years, I humbly submit my Crito to his reading of Socrates in this, our last dialogue of the Plato unit. We will be using Benjamin Jowett's translation, which is in the public domain. Here is Crito.
Why have you come at this hour, Crito? It must be quite early.
Yes, certainly.
What is the exact time?
The dawn is breaking.
I wonder the keeper of the prison would let you in.
He knows me, because I often come, Socrates. Moreover, I have done him a kindness.
And are you only just come?
No, I came some time ago.
Then why did you sit and say nothing, instead of awakening me at once?
Why indeed, Socrates? I myself would rather not have all this sleeplessness and sorrow. But I have been wondering at your peaceful slumbers, and that was the reason why I did not awaken you, because I wanted you to be out of pain. I've always thought you happy in the calmness of your temperament, but never did I see the like of the easy, cheerful way in which you bear this calamity.
Why, Crito, when a man has reached my age, he ought not to be repining at the prospect of death.
And yet other old men find themselves in similar misfortunes, and age does not prevent them from repining.
That may be. But you have not told me why you come at this early hour.
I come to bring you a message, which is sad and painful, not as I believe to yourself, but to all of us who are your friends, and saddest of all, to me. Tomorrow, Socrates, will be your last day of your life.
Very well, Crito. If such is the will of God, I am willing.
Oh, my beloved Socrates, let me entreat you once more to take my advice and escape. For if you die, I shall not only lose a friend who can never be replaced, but there is another evil. People who do not know you and me will believe that I might have saved you if I had been willing to bribe the authorities or the guards, but that I did not care. Now, can there be a worse disgrace than this, that I should be thought to value money more than the life of a friend? For the many will not be persuaded that I wanted you to escape and that you refused.
But why, my dear Crito, should we care about the opinion of the many? Good men, and they are the only persons who are worth considering, will think of these things truly as they happened.
But do you see, Socrates, that the opinion of the many must be regarded, as is evident in your own case, because they can do the very greatest evil to anyone who has lost their good opinion?
I only wish, Crito, that they could, for then they could also do the greatest good, and that would be well. But the truth is that they can do neither good nor evil. They cannot make a man wise or make him foolish, and whatever they do is the result of chance.
Well, I will not dispute about that. But please tell me, Socrates, whether you are not acting out of regard to me and your other friends. Are you not afraid that if you escape hence, we may get into trouble with the informers for having stolen you away and lose either the whole or a great part of our property, or that even a worse evil may happen to us? Now, if this is your fear, be at ease, for in order to save you, we ought surely to run this or even a greater risk. Be persuaded then, and do as I say.
Yes, Crito, that is one fear which you mention, but by no means the only one.
Fear not. There are persons who, at no great cost, are willing to save you and bring you out of prison. And as for the informers, you may observe that they are far from being exorbitant in their demands. A little money will satisfy them. I beseech you, therefore, Socrates, to be persuaded by me and to let me help you escape.
Dear Crito, your zeal is invaluable, if a right one. But if wrong, the greater the zeal, the greater the evil. And therefore we ought to consider whether these things shall be done or not. For I am, and always have been, one of those natures who must be guided by reason, whatever the reason may be, which upon reflection appears to me to be the best. And now that this fortune has come upon me, I cannot put away the reasons which I have before given. The principles which I have hitherto honored and revered, I still honor. And unless we can find other and better principles on the instant, I am certain not to agree with you. No, not even if the power of the multitude could inflict many more imprisonments, confiscations, deaths, frightening us like children with hobgoblin terrors. Tell me whether I am right in saying that some opinions, and the opinions of some men only, are to be valued, and other opinions, and the opinions of other men, are not to be valued. I ask you whether I was right in maintaining this.
Certainly.
The good are to be regarded, and not the bad,
Yes,
and the opinions of the wise are good, and the opinions of the unwise are evil.
certainly.
And what was said about another matter? Was the disciple in gymnastics supposed to attend to the praise and blame and opinion of every man, or of one man only, his physician or trainer, whoever that was?
Of one man only.
And he ought to fear the censure and welcome the praise of that one only, and not of the many?
That is clear.
And he ought to live and train, and eat and drink in the way which seems good to his single master who has understanding, rather than according to the opinion of all other men put together?
True.
And if he disobeys and disregards the opinion and approval of the one, and regards the opinion of the many who have no understanding, will he not suffer evil?
Certainly he will.
And what will the evil be, whither tending, and what affecting in the disobedient person?
Clearly affecting the body. That is what is destroyed by the evil.
Very good. And is not this true, Crito, of other things which we need not separately enumerate? In the matter of just and unjust, fair and foul, good and evil, which are the subjects of our present consultation, ought we to follow the opinion of the many and to fear them, or the opinion of the one man who has understanding, and whom we ought to fear and reverence more than all the rest of the world? and whom deserting we shall destroy and injure that principle in us which may be assumed to be improved by justice and deteriorated by injustice. Is there not such a principle?
Certainly there is, Socrates.
Take a parallel instance. If, acting under the advice of men who have no understanding, we destroy the body, which is improvable by health and deteriorated by disease, when that has been destroyed, I say, would life be worth having? Could we live having an evil and corrupted body?
Certainly not.
And will life be worth having if that higher part of man be depraved, which is improved by justice and deteriorated by injustice? Do we suppose that principle, whatever it may be in man, which has to do with justice and injustice, to be inferior to the body?
Certainly not.
More honored then?
Far more honored.
Then, my friend, we must not regard what the many say of us, but what he, the one man who has understanding of just and unjust, will say, and what the truth will say. And therefore you begin in error when you suggest that we should regard the opinion of the many about just and unjust, good and evil, honorable and dishonorable. Well, someone will say, but the many can kill us.
Yes, Socrates, that will clearly be the answer.
That is true. But still I find with surprise that the old argument is, as I conceive, unshaken as ever. And I should like to know whether I may say the same of another proposition, that not life, but a good life, is to be chiefly valued.
Yes, that also remains.
And a good life is equivalent to a just and honorable one. That holds also?
Yes, that holds.
From these premises, I proceed to argue the question whether I ought or ought not to try to escape without the consent of the Athenians. And if I am clearly right in escaping, then I will make the attempt. But if not, I will abstain. Let us consider the matter together, and do you either refute me if you can, and I will be convinced, or else cease, my dear friend, from repeating to me that I ought to escape against the wishes of the Athenians. For I am extremely desirous to be persuaded by you, but not against my own better judgment. And now please to consider my first position, and do your best to answer me.
I will do my best.
Are we to say that we are never intentionally to do wrong? Or that in one way we ought, in another way we ought not to do wrong? Or is doing wrong always evil and dishonorable, as I was just now saying, and has already been acknowledged by us? Are all our former admissions which were made within a few days to be thrown away? And have we, at our age, been earnestly discoursing with one another all our life long, only to discover that we are no better than children? Or are we rest assured, in spite of the opinion of the many, and in spite of the consequences, whether better or worse, of the truth of what was then said, that injustice is always an evil, and dishonor to him who acts unjustly? Shall we affirm that?
Yes.
Then we must do no wrong?
Certainly not.
Nor, when injured, injure in return, as the many imagine, for we must injure no one at all.
Clearly not.
Again, Crito, may we do evil?
Surely not, Socrates.
And what of doing evil in return for evil, which is the morality of the many? Is that just or not?
Not just.
For doing evil to another is the same as injuring him?
Very true.
Then we ought not to retaliate or render evil for evil to anyone, whatever evil we may have suffered from him. Ought a man to do what he admits to be right, or ought he to betray the right?
He ought to do what he thinks is right.
But if this is true, what is the application? In leaving the prison against the will of the Athenians, would you say I wrong no one? Or rather that I would wrong those whom I ought least to wrong? Do I not desert the principles which were acknowledged by us to be just? What do you say?
I cannot tell, Socrates, for I do not know.
Imagine that I am about to play truant, and the laws and the government come and interrogate me. Tell us, Socrates, they say, what are you about? Are you going by an act of yours to overturn us, the laws, and the whole state, as far as in you lies? Do you imagine that a state can subsist and not be overthrown, in which the decisions of law have no power, but are set aside and overthrown by individuals? And we might reply, yes. but the state has injured us and given us an unjust sentence. Suppose I say that.
Very good, Socrates.
The law would probably say, "Answer, Socrates, what complaint you have to make against us, which justifies you in attempting to destroy us and the state. In the first place, did we not bring you into existence? Your father married your mother by our aid and begat you. Say whether you have any objection to urge against those of us who regulate marriage." None, I should reply. Or against those of us who regulate the system of nurture and education of children in which you were trained. Were not the laws, who have the charge of this, right in commanding your father to train you in music and gymnastic? Right, I should reply. Well, then, since you were brought into the world and nurtured and educated by us, can you deny in the first place that you are our child, as your fathers were before you? And if this is true, you are not on equal terms with us, nor can you think that you have a right to do to us what we are doing to you. Would you have any right to strike or revile or do any other evil to a father, if you had one, when you have been struck or reviled by him, or received some other evil at his hands? You would not say this? And because we think right to destroy you, do you think that you have any right to destroy us in return, and your country as far as in you lies? How shall we answer that, Crito? Must we not agree?
There is no help, Socrates.
Then will they not say, "You, Socrates, are breaking the covenants and agreements which you made with us at your leisure, not in any haste or under any compulsion or deception, but having had 70 years to think of them, during which time you were at liberty to leave the city, if we were not to your mind, or if our covenants appeared to you to be unfair? You had your choice. Consider, if you transgress and err in this sort of way, what good will you do, either to yourself or to your friends? That your friends will be driven into exile and deprived of citizenship, or will lose their property, is tolerably certain. And you yourself, if you fly to one of our neighboring cities, as for example, Thebes or Megara, both of which are well-governed cities, will come to them as an enemy, Socrates, and their government will be against you, and all patriotic citizens will cast an evil eye upon you as a subverter of the laws. And you will confirm in the minds of the judges the justice of their own condemnation of you. For he who is a corrupter of the laws is more than likely to be corrupter of the young and foolish portion of mankind. Will you then flee from well-ordered cities and virtuous men? And is existence worth having on these terms? Listen then, Socrates, to us who have brought you up. Listen then to us, and not to Crito. This is the voice which I seem to hear murmuring in my ears, like the sound of the flute in the ears of the mystic. That voice, I say, is humming in my ears, and prevents me from hearing any other. And I know that anything more which you will say will be in vain. Yet speak, if you have anything to say.
I have nothing to say, Socrates.
Then let me follow the intimations of the will of God.